Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today we continue on to episode 8 of our Clone Wars history series. In our last episode we covered the Battle of Teth, aka the time both the Separatists and clones fought over one Hutt baby like it was a football. The winner of this match would gain the favor of Jabba the Hutt along with the rest of the Hutt Council, and they would also have access to all of the Hutt territory hyperspace lanes for the rest of the Clone Wars. So far, the Republic are ahead of the Separatists in this competition. They have possession of Rotta the Hutt. Anakin and Ahsoka Tano are headed towards the planet of Tatooine for Jabba's palace in a beat-up transport. The only problem is little Rotta has developed a fever while in captivity and was getting worse by the second. Delivering a dead baby Hutt would not win the Republic any favors from the Hutts. Luckily, Ahsoka finds a medical droid on board, which dispenses some life-saving medicine for Rotta, whose fever quickly disappears. The Asajj Ventress had initially sent ships after the Jedi, but Count Dooku had other plans. He tells Jabba the Hutt the Jedi have killed his son and were now on their way to Tatooine to kill him. And with that one message, the game has now changed. The Separatists no longer have to worry about the baby Hutt. Now they have to just focus on killing the Jedi. It's a smart move on Count Dooku's part. This simplifies his mission, and the Jedi are probably unaware of this recent development. On approach to Tatooine, Anakin prepares their rusty shuttle for combat. He tells R2-D2 to prepare the main cannon before the rear reflector shields. Ahsoka points out to Anakin that it is risky to leave the rear of the ship open to attack, to which Anakin replies,
"A strong attack eliminates the need for defense, Snips."
This piece of dialogue really shows us what Anakin thinks of combat and what his mentality is going in. He's all about destroying the enemy before they have a chance of striking back. Interesting to see Ahsoka Tano, his Padawan, was always trying to temper him and make him more cautious. Ahsoka was pretty reckless herself, but seeing her master act in such a crazy way probably made her self-reflect and become more cautious and mature. Yoda really knew what he was doing when he assigned Ahsoka to Anakin. I think the two are a great fit for each other, and they'll really help each other develop as the war goes on. But in this scenario, Anakin's recklessness makes the situation a lot tougher than necessary, as they revert to real space and encounter two of Dooku's Magna Guards in orbit and are immediately shot down because
all the guns are locked in the forward position. It's too bad you decided not to repair the rear deflector shields.
This would be the first of many crash landings for Anakin Skywalker, but what makes this crash landing so special is that it's a crash onto his original home planet of Tatooine. The last time Anakin had been on this world, he had witnessed the death of his mother and had slaughtered an entire village of sand people in retaliation, an event that probably unhinged him quite a lot. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Obi-Wan Kenobi reports back to Palpatine to inform him what is going on. The Jedi Master suspects that Dooku is going to try to pin the whole kidnapping on the Republic by killing Anakin. When Senator Padmé Amidala enters the room, Palpatine purposely mentions that Anakin is in danger,
including a small skirmish with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin.
Anakin? Is he in danger?
I'm afraid the Jedi's efforts to strike a secret treaty with the Hutts have gone terribly wrong.
Remember guys, Chancellor Palpatine had found out about Anakin and Padmé's secret wedding from fellow Naboo Captain Panaka. It's really in his interest to keep on supporting this relationship and seeing it grow stronger. Because the more entwined Anakin becomes with Padmé, the easier it will be for Palpatine to use her as leverage over the young Jedi Knight. Palpatine was the one who first impregnated Anakin's mom in the first place, and he's been grooming him since day one to one day become his apprentice. In this situation though, Palpatine uses Padmé's affection for the Jedi Knight to involve her in this scenario. Padmé was not only beautiful, but also a great negotiator. That made her the ideal person to restart talks with someone like Jabba the Hutt, who really appreciated beauty. We sometimes take it for granted how difficult it was for Palpatine to play both sides of the war. He wasn't completely in control of everything that was going on both sides. Instead, he used his political skills and connections to slightly influence things in the right way to keep things balanced. As we've said many times before, the Separatists clearly had the upper hand at the beginning of the Clone Wars. So it was crucial for the Republic to ally themselves with the Hutts, and without the hyperspace lanes, it would be very difficult for the Republic to win the war, even with Palpatine's help. And also, Palpatine can't be too obvious that he is helping the other side, otherwise his cover is blown. But even if Palpatine was not a Sith Lord, he still would have easily been one of the best politicians the galaxy has ever seen. With very minimal effort, he's always able to get exactly what he wants. Oftentimes he didn't have to get directly involved and could get someone else to do his bidding for him, which also meant no one exactly understood Palpatine's political positions. He was just a charming politician that everyone liked.
Good.
because of recent actions by Dooku, the Hutts weren't even willing to have communication with the Republic. They thought that Anakin and Ahsoka had killed the Hutt baby, but Padmé had connections with Jabba's uncle Zero on Coruscant, which she thinks could help her potentially start up talks again between the Hutts and the Republic. Unbeknownst to Padmé, Zero the Hutt had actually helped Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress kidnap Rotta in the first place. Zero was a pretty ambitious Hutt and he wanted a seat on the Hutt Council, but unfortunately his nephew Jabba was standing in the way. Sitting in the way. The Hutts were a really ruthless race of slugs. They had evolved on a toxic world full of dangerous predators, which is why their culture is so cutthroat. But the Hutts had realized pretty early on that continuous backstabbing and infighting would eventually doom their species, kind of like the ancient Sith Empire. So the Hutts established a ruling council made up of the 5 most powerful Hutt families. Any kind of action against another family was severely punished. That of course didn't prevent individuals like Zero from carrying out actions behind the council's back. Jabba at the time was one of the main leaders sitting on the council. Zero hoped a conflict between the Jedi and Republic would eventually end with the death of Jabba, which meant that his seat would be available for him to take over. This also meant that Senator Amidala's request for an audience with Jabba was exactly the opposite of what Zero wanted. So Zero politely asked Padmé to leave when she arrives at his nightclub, which makes Padmé more than a bit suspicious. Undeterred, she sneaks back in and witnesses Zero speaking to Count Dooku through the HoloNet. But before she can get away, Zero's goon catch her and imprison her. Meanwhile, back on Tatooine, Anakin and Ahsoka are trekking through the sand dunes towards Jabba's palace when they sense a dark presence. The two decide to split up. Ahsoka takes young Rotta with her while Anakin gets ready to face off once again with Count Dooku. The last time they had fought, Anakin was still a Padawan and far less experienced and just as reckless as he was now. During that encounter, he had eaten a mouthful of Sith lightning and then lost his hand, which was replaced with a superior robot hand. Count Dooku had been using the incredibly deadly and rare Form 2 lightsaber technique, which was designed for dueling purposes. Anakin had just been a boy the last time they had met, but now the trials of combat have turned him into a man and a full-on Jedi Knight. And this time around, Anakin is ready for Dooku's Sith lightning attack. Anakin also fought Dooku's apprentice Ventress on Christophsis. She too used Form 2, which he learned from Count Dooku, so Anakin was much more experienced with this technique this time around. So Anakin starts off almost in a defensive mode, but still relies on his favorite technique, Form 5. As the battle goes on, Anakin begins to fuel his strikes more and more with anger and passion. It's not really what you want to see a Jedi doing, but Anakin has never been a conventional Jedi. Form 5 was all about using power to control your enemy and keeping them on the defensive. The end goal was trying to get your foe completely off balance and then you could end the duel. It was the exact opposite of Form 2, which was all about finesse and efficiency, which suited Dooku well. He was quite old now and way past his prime. Dooku clearly senses that Anakin is much stronger this time around and resorts to some other tactics to gain the upper hand. Dooku knows Anakin's past and tries to unbalance him by talking about his childhood as a slave on Tatooine. He hopes to make the Jedi more emotional, which will force him to make some mistakes.
This was your home planet, wasn't it? I sense your strong feelings. Feelings of pain, loss.
This tactic has a limited effect on Anakin though. If anything, he seems to be channeling his terrible past into raw energy to power his Form 5 lightsaber technique. So Dooku decides to switch tactics and shows Anakin that he has sent 3 of his Magna Guard droids after Ahsoka Tano and Baby Rotta. This does the trick and Anakin disengages from Dooku to go after his Padawan. You see, Anakin was never about self-pity or his own issues. His greatest weakness was his care for other people, including his loved ones and his friends and his Padawan. Dooku exploited this side of his personality and was able to postpone his death. But even as a preteen and Padawan, Ahsoka Tano was quite skilled. She was definitely better at fighting than most Jedi her age. She was able to hold her own against the Magna Guard while still carrying the baby Hutt in her backpack. Ahsoka used the modified Form 5 lightsaber technique similar to the one Anakin does, but she usually held her lightsabers with a reverse grip. She also had a lot of training with quarterstaffs, which is probably why she was able to hold her own against 3 Magna Guards. Meanwhile, Anakin rushes to Jabba's temple and encounters the Hutt, but without Rotta, exactly according to Dooku's plan. Jabba now thinks Anakin is there to assassinate him. Anakin cluelessly draws his saber and demands to know where his Padawan is. Luckily, she shows up right in time with the baby Hutt to save the day. Back on Coruscant, Padmé has managed to contact C-3PO from Zero's prison. The protocol droid then leads a squad of clones to Zero's nightclub and then rescues the senator just in time for her to place a call to Jabba. She explains that Jabba, Zero, and Count Dooku are actually the ones behind the kidnapping. This makes Jabba furious and he immediately agrees to allow Republic forces to use Hutt hyperspace lanes. So now the Republic has successfully secured a route from the core Republic worlds to the Outer Rim through Hutt space. They now have the ability to strike out at several Separatist worlds from multiple locations, which is a good thing because the battle in the Outer Rim is about to heat up. In our next episode, we're going to head over to Ryloth, one of the most exploited and most occupied planets in Star Wars history. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of this awesome series. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.